Hi guys, welcome back to The Forgetful Scholar, and this week we're going to chat about books. 2 books. So I kind of feel like right now, so I'm going to try my best to be high energy because the books this week were a lot of fun and I think they deserve a little bit more than this, whatever this is. So the first one was, they both had mystery components in it. The first one was sort of a realistic magic urban fantasy mystery-ish. And the second one was crime and mystery, boy love, gay romance. And the first one was straight romance. So let's do with the first one. Tidings, Aisling Grimlock, Book 1 by Amanda M. Lee. So this was 3 stars. I enjoyed myself. I really liked the world, and this is the urban fantasy one, and it was published 2014, 234 pages. So I did enjoy it. So Aisling and her twin brother Aiden are the youngest, and they have 3 older brothers, and Aisling is the younger twin, so she is the only girl and the youngest. So sibling age dynamic definitely comes into play in this. And their dad is a widower. Mother died when she was around 10, things like that. Now, what's interesting about the Grimlocks are they're Grim Reapers. Now, they don't live in like a different world than, the human one. They're just a little bit supernatural is how they described it. And this world is really interesting to me. And I really enjoyed the world building. It takes place in Detroit. And she didn't want to be a Grim Reaper, so she tried a bunch of different jobs. She's like mid to late 20s, I think, like 25, 28, I'm not sure. And she ended up having to go back to the family business. How did they get paid? I have no idea. I don't know. I was kind of wondering, like who pays them? Like their dad is like a famous Grim Reaper, and he's like on the council. Like, does the council, like, how did they get their pay? Anyway, now, Aisling is a good representation of like not like these other girls, but actually she's not. Like it doesn't feel like forced down her throat, like, oh my gosh, she's so different. It's just her personality is what it is, and I like that. She's more of a tomboy, which makes sense. She grew up with 4 older brothers, and her mom died again before she hit teenage years. So it's understandable she'd be more tomboy-esque, There's a romance with a detective, Griffin. What's his... I just wrote Griffin. I didn't write his last name. Taylor, I think? He's an interesting character. We're in Aisling's point of view the whole time. And I'm probably pronouncing her name incorrectly, so sorry about that. Basically, they have a list of souls that they're supposed to reap, and they're not killing anybody or anything. They're just sort of like the ferrymen, and they take their souls to where they belong. And the religious system is interesting because it depends on what religion the person who died was. Like if they're Catholic, then they could go to heaven, purgatory, or hell, right? Like if they're Catholic. Or if they're practice Judaism, things like that. So I thought that was really interesting, and a good way to kind of handle that. And basically they have these scepters that like sucks in the soul once the soul is released from the body, and then they take it somewhere, I'm not sure, and they release it, and the soul goes where it's supposed to go, right? And we're like right in it when it starts. So it hooks you in, right? I thought the writing was fun, fast-paced, nothing felt draggy. I will say, chapter 25 had no point. There was no reason for chapter 25. Chapter 25 is when all of them go miniature golfing. No, not miniature golfing. Golfing, just her family. And Aisling is being super annoying the whole time. Granted, she's in pain and she didn't want to go. But she's really just making everybody else's problem, which... yeah, in retrospect, I thought that was kind of funny, but as I was reading it, there was really no point in that chapter, like, at all. Because the dad's annoyed the whole time. The brothers are annoying the whole time. Aisling's annoying the whole time. I was like, there's no point for chapter 25 whatsoever. And I think that for me, why it's a 3 and not a 4, because that chapter, like, made no sense. It could have been edited out. You know what I mean? I felt like that kind of dragged, because it's in the middle of, like, third act, oh my gosh, this is what's happening and all this stuff is going on and this is like, we have to find these things and no, let's go golfing. I was like, what the hell? Okay, so they basically, Aisling and Aiden stumble upon a dead body, and the thing is about it, it's not on their list and the soul is gone, right? So that leads them down a very investigative path, and they're kind of arguing about it as Detective Griffin shows up, right? So they get pulled in for questioning, all this stuff, right? And it turns out there are wraiths, which are in this world are witches or warlocks who want to become immortal, and to do that they kind of lose what makes them human, and they just become like sort of like ghouls but for souls. So it's not so much like they don't crave like flesh, they crave souls, and once they devour the soul, it's gone. It's not no reincarnation, no afterlife, it's devoured, right? Which is actually pretty sad. There was this one point where Aisling tried to save a soul from being devoured, and like he was going to heaven, and he was excited because he hadn't seen his wife in 25 years, and he got devoured, and I was like really sad about that. But the book doesn't really let you like sit in that for very long, you know? So that is the mystery. They're trying to find these wraiths and who's behind these wraiths and why the wraiths are after Aisling, because they seem to be only going after Aisling, at least later on in the story, not so much in the beginning. So I found that like, oh my god, they only show up in Aisling's thing. No, because the first dead body they came across was actually on one of her older brother's lists for next week. So when they collect the souls, they have like, I pictured like a file. They have a file with a picture and where they're going and why they're going there. Like if they're going to hell or purgatory has why. Just the highlights, like it's interesting. The sibling relationship was really sweet and a lot of fun. And the author did a fantastic job with dialogue. It all felt very, very realistic. You know, the siblings picking on each other, but if someone else picks on them, watch out. You know, I felt that was really great. They're really super protective of Aisling, which is compounded by the fact that their mother died in a fire trying to reap a soul. So, and she's she might look, they all look like their dad, right? But Aisling's, I guess, is more like their mom than they are, so it makes sense, right? I get it. And the thing what I love about it, she's just as protective of them, which I was like, yes, I love that. Because as I'm a middle child, so I have an older sister and a younger brother, so I was like, yes, they could be protective of you, but you're just as protective of them. I love that. And there's this one in the beginning, during the first act, her and her twin brother Aiden, who's gay, and her roommate Jerry, they go to a drag queen. They go to a drag show, and one of her brothers, I think it was Killian's. She has like 3 older brothers. I should have Redford, Killian, and Brandon, or Redford, Brandon, and Killian. You know, and they run in the drag show. They run into Killian's ex-girlfriend, who Aisling hated from high school, and like, the ex-girlfriend cheated on her brother, right? So Aiden and Aisling being horrible to that girl made sense. And that girl came over and started snipping, like started verbally girl fighting with Aisling first, you know? So I get it. And like the ex-girlfriend threw something Aisling's, like a drink in Aisling's face, and Aisling just beat her ass. And I was like, and I put the book down and I was like, fist fight at a drag show, I am in. I am all in. You already had me like half interested because of the grim urban fantasy stuff going on, but this, I'm all in, girl. Let's go. Let's go. And and I really like Aisling. There's points in this book that I really liked her, and there's points in this book that I really found her freaking annoying. It's interesting because I was really annoyed with her, and I was like, dang it, I don't want to be annoyed with her. Everything about this character I like. Why am I so annoyed with her? And the thing is, the moment she resolved this certain conflict internally for herself, I stopped being annoyed with her. So I was like, oh, that's why. So the whole thing is, Jerry has been her best friend since they were little, and he knows about them being Grim Reapers. and she catches Jerry and Aiden like making out, right? And all the other brothers are like, oh, that's wonderful. You know, they've been pining for each other for a while. This is great. She has a huge problem with it and kind of being really bratty about it. And I found this is the point where I was like wondering how old Aslan is, but she's supposed to be like mid going on late 20s. And before this, she, for me, acted like a mid 20s, late 20s, woman. Like she was stubborn, she has a temper. Love seeing that in a main character, but I'll get back to that in a second. But she seemed like the correct maturity level, right? Her having a problem that her best friend and brother were dating, like for me, just dropped her down to middle school in maturity level. Like she didn't want to talk about it. She was so in denial about it. Her older brothers were giving her a hard time about it, you know, and she's basically being like a little S-bag about it. You know, and in the moment she stopped and was like, no, I'm being the bad friend. I'm happy for them. The moment she did that, all my annoyance of her disappeared. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's why I was so annoyed. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And then she went back to being like the correct age. If that makes sense. Like it was such a weird dip in maturity, you know what I mean? And I get it, siblings sometimes, you know, they can push your buttons to the point where you're like 12 years old again, and I get that, but that was such a weird moment, you know? And like I said before, she has a temper and she's stubborn, and I love seeing a main female character having those traits and not being stupid. I mean, there was one thing that she did that was pretty dumb, but it wasn't both these books this week, because sometimes the books I read in the week, sometimes they have like things in common that I never realized when I picked them. But she made a slightly dumb decision, but it wasn't one of those moments where you kind of like hit your forehead like, what are you doing? That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That was completely out of character, right? No, Asling's she's impulsive. She's impulsive. She's been impulsive this whole time. She's emotional, and when that happens, she gets even more, her impulsive nature like kicks up even more, and it was consistent through the whole book. So when she decides to do a dumb thing in the third act conflict, I was like, yeah, I wasn't surprised, but she's not an idiot. Like the whole book, she wasn't an idiot. So I was like, oh man, like they made her an idiot, and I was incorrect. Because she texted her twin brother, where she was going. Because she knows her brother sleeps with his phone like right by his ear. So I was like, okay, I take it back. She's not being dumb. This is within the character we've seen so far. And, you know, she's not a complete idiot. So she has like backup coming, you know, so that's great. And her and Detective Griffin, they have a whole romance subplot. That was just fine. Normally I would have really liked it, but there was a fourth tier subplot that I really latched onto. And I think maybe because I was reading this during Father's Day, and my father passed some time ago, so you know I was been thinking about him, and maybe this is why. But like to me, this book, yeah, mystery, yeah, romance, both were fine, both were cute. I liked the ending for both of them. It's fine. But what really got me hooked on this book was the dynamic between a father and an adult daughter, right? Because in the beginning, you think they're completely at odds. You think the father is kind of strict and doesn't trust her because she's a screw up. And remember, we're in Aslan's point of view, right? And at one point, Aslan thinks that the father would have been happier if wanted her to be a boy, you know, like all these kind of things. And their dynamic throughout this book, not only does he have like these four boys who are just chaos personified. I really like the brothers. They're phenomenal. And each one had definitely a different personality, which I think is really hard to do considering they all look like the dad. So that was, I enjoyed that. Not only does he have these four chaos personified, but like his daughter too, like he he was pretty much yelling or telling him to shut up like the whole book, right? But there was just the subplot about these two and their relationship, right? And the third act, I freaking loved how the third act ended. I loved how the conflict ended. I was like, my fist was in the air, like, go, because like the cavalry arrived, right? And I don't want to say too much, but like I got a little choked up again. Father's Day, probably, you know, I was thinking about my dad, but like Aslan realizes it's not that her father wanted her to be a boy. He loves that he gets a part that he loves Aslan. He loves that Aslan's a girl. He loves that he has a part of his wife walking around in Aslan because she's so much like the mom. It wasn't that at all. Like, he loves her for her. It was her. Aslan thought that he didn't, that he wanted her to be something else. And I love that they fixed their, I'm sure in the upcoming books they're gonna headbutt again, because they're both pretty much the same kind of stubbornness. But like, it was so touching how like she realized it might have been easier if she was a boy for her dad, but her dad never wanted her to be a boy. You know what I mean? So that was really sweet. That's what got me. And this is like a third, fourth tier story plot. It wasn't the main focus. The main focus was the romance and the mystery. And Griffin, he's a fine, I like him character. He's a little forgettable. I would have liked if he had a little bit more personality. But again, this is from Aslan's point of view. So we just get a lot of like him smirking, finding her brothers amusing. He needs time to think a lot, because it's fair when he finds out she's a Grim and all that, what all that means. He kind of freaks out a little bit, which is fair, you know. But like, he doesn't really have the biggest personality compared to Aslan and her brothers, who were just, and the dad, who's just these huge, big, complex, funny personalities. And Jerry too, the best friend, completely unique, louder than life personality. Griffin kind of disappeared a little bit. So I would have liked to see that a little bit more. Even if he's just sort of the steady guy like her oldest brother is, that's cool too. I just wish we got a little bit more of him, but it wasn't horrible, right? I liked how their romance went. It wasn't love at first sight. It was definitely attraction at first sight, and that's fine. You know, it's fine. So yeah, I'm gonna continue with the series. I enjoyed myself, you know, definitely 3 stars. But like the father-daughter relationship, I liked that the best, which was like not even the main point of the story. Anyway, second book, The Mermaid Murders, The Art of Murder, Book 1 by Josh Lanyon. You know we love that author here. Published 2016, 246 pages. This deals with Special Agent Jason West and Special Agent Manhunter Sam Kennedy. So this was definitely boy love, you know, but crime mystery. This was not cozy. This was like a dramatic crime mystery. And this mystery, I was hooked. I was like, no, oh, I should like pause and have lunch. Screw that. I don't need lunch. Let's keep going. Like, I was so in it. And this was definitely a 5 stars for me. At first I put it at a 4.5 because I was like, I don't know if this is a book that I would, like if someone's like, hey, I want to get into gay mystery books, I was like, I'm not sure if this is one I would like, hey, you should read this book to get into the genre. That's usually what 5 stars are for me. And then I was like, no, I would definitely be like, hey, if you want to start reading gay romance novels, this isn't a cozy, but it's so good, read this, right? So we're in Jace's point of view the whole time. The FBI is contracted because they're afraid that a copycat of a serial killer is back. And Sam Kennedy is the one that caught the original huntsman. So he's there, and there was some snafu in his latest case, like some political BS. So Justin is basically there as like a handler, making sure he doesn't piss off anybody else, and also to report back to his boss which is Jason is not happy about that. That is not who he is. He's originally from the art crimes department, so this is a little different from him. I will say the Kennedy character, like, okay, so the characters a little bit, just to me, reminded me of, you know, the show NCIS. Gibbs reminded me of Kennedy, and Wes reminded me of DiNozzo. That's that's what they kind of remind me of, like, personality wise. So I enjoyed it just for that. The romance was a lot of fun because it wasn't really, that was like second tier to murder, right? And it was very much like finding moments of good in this horrible situation where girls are being killed, and then both of them wanting a little bit more but not sure how to go about it. So I'm going to enjoy reading the series to see how that works out. But the mystery, I had no idea who the killer was, and I love when that happens. Like, the red herring was red herring, right? I get it, but there was points where, like, wait, is it a reverse red herring? Is the red herring actually the bad guy? It was so good, and I was like, the mystery was so good. It was very, there was no real humor in this, I will say. I really liked the mystery. I loved the twist of who it was. I loved the third act, and I enjoyed the romance as slow as it goes. There is an open door sex scene, so there is that. The personalities were so strong, right? And this is the part, like how the first book, one of the characters does something that you're initially like, oh, that's so stupid, but thinking on it, it really is their character. So Sam tells Jason not to follow this line of inquiry and investigation. He doesn't tell him why, because the whole time Sam's not really sharing his thoughts through this case, and he's like a profiler and all that, and he's not really sharing it with Jason, and Jason's like had enough because he is a full-blown FBI agent. He has been lead on many cases. This is, it's pissing him off, right? And it just made sense that that Jason wasn't going to drop this line of inquiry, right? Even though it leads to him being in danger, and that's why Sam wanted him to drop it until Sam got back. But since Sam didn't say that, because Sam doesn't share his words, Jason ends up in a pretty harrowing situation. But also, again, completely within the characters all around. It was phenomenal. Like, reading it, you'll be like, oh, this is a stupid mistake. It's not really. It's actually pretty clear. The whole book, these are who these characters are, and this is what's going to happen. Sure, character growth can happen, and I love it when it does, but this is like the baseline of these characters. It makes sense. It made sense to me. So, and the whole time, where this serial killer was, because when Jason was a teenager, the first girl that was taken by the huntsman was his best friend. So he's a little close to this. So his emotions are kind of all over the place. And internally he knows it. See, that's the thing about Jason in this. He's very self-actualizing. He knows he's too close. He has to get distance. And he recently got back on the job from an injury. He was shot. So he knows he has issues with that, and he realizes it. So I loved being in his point of view and seeing him like understanding what otherwise the reader would be like, oh my gosh, you're being so stupid. It's okay, because he was like, oh my gosh, why am I being so stupid? So like, so it makes sense. And I really loved the whole thing, and I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed the murder mystery, and yes, I liked Sam and Jason together. I liked their romance, but like really the mystery really just sucked me in, and I couldn't stop reading it. I just had to find out who this copycat was, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, what is going on. And it is really rare when a mystery gets me so completely entranced. And it's rare when I'm not like, oh, it's this guy, obviously. I had no idea who it was. And then later, like, the clues made sense to put it, but I just, oh my God. Oh, chef's kiss. I had so much fun. Okay. I had a lot of fun this week. Despite how low my energy is right now, I had so much fun this week. So I don't want to, it's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.